A little while ago, I had a conversation with a woman who has literally been labelled the worst mother in the world. Her name is Lenore Skenazy. She is the founder of the Let Grow movement, and a few years back, she allowed her 9-year-old son to catch the subway in New York City home alone. Hello and welcome to the Happy Families Podcast, real parenting solutions every day on Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We are Justin and Kylie Coulson. Kylie, you've been to New York City. You've ridden the subway. Would you let your 9-year-old child catch a train on the subway solo? I'm putting you under the microscope here. You're looking at me like, why'd you have to ask that question? That's not what you agreed on. It just popped into my head.
So, having done it a number of times now, I would say that depending on what station I was dropping my child off at and what station they were getting off at would make a difference to my answer.
Would being with them also make a difference?
9's pretty young. And
yes.
I know that as a 45-year-old woman, I was pretty nervous getting on and off those trains and trying to work out lines and following colours, and it was a lot to take in.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're not familiar with it at all, and the Skenazys lived in New York City, and so therefore it wasn't nearly as scary for them. But I got the chance to talk with her. This is one of the most influential women in parenting in the world these days. She's done some great work with Jonathan Haidt and his work around the anxious generation. And I asked her when she wrote this article about the decision to let her 9-year-old do it and was subsequently labelled the worst mother in the world. I just kind of said to her, well, putting a kid on a subway in New York City feels risky. So I asked her to give us the setup for how she let him do it.
Some kids love certain things, like there are kids who love cars or dolls or whatever. He loved the subway. He loves, he loved public transportation. But we wanted to make sure he understood that you're reading the map, and the green line, which is the line that he was going to have to take. That's the 4, 5, and 6 train for anybody who's been to New York City. That was the train you would have to take. And, this is the stop you get off on. And then, of course, we're always on that extremely slow bus. So he knew that he would have to wait for the bus at the bus stop. I don't recall telling him this that time, but I've always told my kids that you can talk to strangers. You can't go off with strangers. So if you need help from somebody, certainly you can ask a question of somebody, but you can't get into somebody's car. You can't go off with somebody. And other than that, we prepared him with a couple of things. We gave him a subway map, $20 just in case he needed something went really terribly wrong and he needed to take a cab or something. Quarters, because there were still some payphones in the subway. And a Metro card, which is the card that you slide through the entryway to get into the trains to pay your fare. And so I'd say that we didn't think we were crazy because we were preparing him, and because it wasn't something that he was saying, "No, Mom, I don't want to do this." This was his idea and something that we had all discussed and decided he was ready for.
So when you listen to her, it's clearly obvious. Number one, they use the trains regularly.
Yeah.
This is not something that's new to him. And he loves public transport.
Yep.
And number two, the thing that really stands out to me is here's a mum who's absolutely pre-armed her son with everything that he needs to be safe.
He's prepared. She's prepared. They've walked him through it. They've done dry runs, practiced.
And the thing that stands out to me, having done that and having had my own personal experiences that have not ended up that way, is he, as a 9-year-old, walks out that door with more confidence and feels empowered because somebody believes in him. Somebody believes that he's actually capable of doing that. And that's the power in what she's given him.
Yeah, so there's a lot of noise being made, and I'm one of the people making noise about it, is we've got to help our kids to take more risks, to be engaged in risky play. You keep on rolling your eyes when I say it, but I'm going to say it again right now anyway. Our children need to be able to do things that could land them in hospital if they go wrong on at least a weekly basis, whether it's climbing a rock wall, which is what one of our kids do, or going for a bike ride, or just doing stuff that could land you in a little bit of strife. the whole thing here is that children do better and feel better about life when we express confidence in them and set them up to go and do it. Our job is to make ourselves redundant and to give our kids the opportunity to push against those boundaries.
You did something similar to this in parental guidance a couple of years ago. And what I found really, really interesting was how each of the kids handled themselves to the point where one of them actually stopped at Macca's, brought himself some food, missed a couple of buses, but he wasn't phased.
I can't remember how old he was, but I think he was maybe 11, and he had to catch a bus from Brisbane to like 40 minutes down the road to Loganholme. It was a long...
It was a big deal.
It was a big deal, and he's just gone and bought himself some Yuck Donalds, and it was great. So Lenore Skenazy is, like I said, super influential. We're going to play the entire interview on Saturday, but I just want to play this as well because this really stood out to me. When I interviewed her, I said to her, people always say, but what if things go wrong? What if you'd put him on the train and there was an emergency? Things played out differently. I mean, it's great that he was okay, but what if? This was her response.
First of all, you can never say you're going to be fine because that is the idea of control. I mean, the illusion that we can control for every variable, I think it leads to bureaucracy.
Great pickup. Yes.
And I think it leads to extreme nervousness on the part of parents because there's no acknowledgement that like we can't control everything. We aren't God. You know, we think we are. We have the phones. We can track them. We can see who they texted. We can, there's cameras everywhere. But in fact, we're not in complete control. And, if you think you are, you will never be able to let go at all because you will think if anything bad happens, there will be no grace.
I remember as a 14-year-old catching a bus for the very first time. Public transport, had never done it before. My friend was going to the movies and she asked me to meet her. So I caught the Great City Circle bus. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I was to find out later that if you catch a Great City Circle bus, you catch one number to your destination, but you have to catch a different number back because it gets to the halfway point and then as it does a turnaround, it does a big loop around the city.
Right.
So it gets to the halfway point and then it changes numbers. So it was a 598 bus on the way in and I had to catch the 599 on the way out.
Right.
My parents had told me that I had to come home straight after the movies. Mm-hmm. So I jumped out of the movies and I ran to the bus and my bus was there, the 598.
Right.
I didn't think to ask anyone. I jumped on the bus.
Makes sense.
And before I knew it, I was half an hour in the wrong direction at the end of the day. Oh. So I got off the bus and I was like, this isn't where I should be.
Oh, you got off the bus?
I did get off the bus.
Oh, no.
But then I checked the sign and it told me that this bus would take me. So I didn't ask anyone. I just got back on the bus and ended up another half an hour down the road.
Oh, no.
So by the time I finally asked somebody, they explained what I'd done wrong.
Right.
And I'd actually reached the halfway point by then, so I could stay on the bus and wait until they did the turnaround to go back.
Oh, my goodness.
But because it was now so late, I wasn't going to make it home.
And this is in the days before mobile phones.
Yes. So my parents were very stressed. But the reason this story stands out to me and what Lenore has done is that because of that experience, I actually never caught another bus.
Oh.
I wasn't left feeling empowered. There wasn't an opportunity for me to learn.
You just got in trouble for getting it all wrong.
From my mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I just love that here's this mum that has not only shown belief in her son, but has given him everything he needs to be successful.
Yeah. Alfie Kohn said to me once, if you want responsible kids, you have to give them a responsibility.
Which means they're going to stuff it up.
Correct.
And they're going to get it wrong.
And his whole argument was when they get it wrong, you don't say, well, that's it. You're not going to do that again. Can't trust you. What you do instead is you sit down and say, I trusted you with something. It didn't work out. Let's understand what went wrong. Do you think that if I trust you, that you can get it right this second time? And so by giving kids more responsibility, that's how they learn to be responsible. Beautiful time with Lenore's message. We are out of time. I wish we could play the whole interview right now. Instead, because there's so much great stuff that she talks about, we're going to play the entire conversation for you on Saturday. We'll link to her websites and her free-range child book and all that sort of stuff on our show notes as well. But we really would encourage you to have a listen to what Lenore has to say. That's on Saturday. Today's sneak peek, giving you a sense of just some of the really cool stuff that she's going to talk about. I can't wait for you to hear the whole conversation. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. More information and more resources about strengthening, supporting, and making your family happier are available at happyfamilies.com.au.